Why are so many people overwhelmed with clutter? Disorganization is causing shame, suffering, friendships, time, money. People just like you, wondering where and how to create an organized lifestyle. This podcast offers expert tips and solutions for your clutter obstacles. My name is Rachel Seavey, and this is the Hoardganize Podcast. Hey, collectors! Welcome to the Hoardganize Podcast. I'm your host, professional organizer, Rachel Seavey, and this episode is a follow-up to the last episode. It's an episode about paperwork, but more other kinds of paperwork that are common that I find in people's homes and that you have in your home, probably mixed in with your bills and important papers. So I wanted to definitely dedicate an episode to items like travel items, travel articles, places you might want to go, recipes, coupons. I see a lot of coupons, interest, anything that you have an interest in that you've printed off of the internet, things like Bible verses. I see a lot of funny memes and animal jokes, and people really print out a lot of recipes and just reference kind of articles. And then they're printed out and somehow they get shuffled in and mixed in with your paperwork. This can also definitely be something like cards, sentimental cards. What do people do with sentimental cards, right? And memorabilia, tickets to places that you've been, tickets to the zoo, tickets to a concert, tickets to a movie. People really save a lot of paper. And one of my most favorite there's two biggies that I come across a lot that people really don't know what to do with: receipts and notes, handwritten notes. This could be in the form of a Post-it. This could be, a to-do list. This is anything written on the back of a whatever. I see notes in all forms of fashions, and people definitely have a lot of extra paperwork that they need to process on top of the stuff that you need to save for taxes and save to cover your what. So let's start with you're going through a box of paperwork. Last episode, we talked about what to do with bills and financial statements and things for taxes. But intermixed, I've found that it's really common for people to have other forms of paperwork, and myself included. Let's start with things that are of reference. So this could be things that you've pulled out of a magazine. This is articles from a newspaper. This could be things you printed off of the internet, saved from a travel guide. So this references things that you want to get to that interest you can also be mixed in with your paperwork. So I have a pretty good strategy for that. Things like coupons, recipes, not ones that are hand-me-downs or family or ones that are important to you, but just recipes you might have torn out or gotten for free at the grocery store. Things like that. Things that you are kind of interested in. They're not a high-level priority. So what do you do with them? Typically, if you're dealing with massive amounts of paperwork, I would just say pull out what's important and deal with the rest. But let's say you're at the rest, and this is this kind of stuff you don't really know how to process. My suggestion is that you try and sort these things out like loose categories, like you would sort anything else. And while you're sorting, go ahead and process them. So you're going through a stack of paperwork, you found some bills, you know what to do with those. Let's say you come across a recipe. You don't even remember why or when you printed out this recipe. It looks on the bottom, it says 2007. So you're like, do I want this recipe? I mean, I love lasagna, but am I going to make this lasagna? Like, I haven't even used this recipe ever. It's been buried in this stack of papers. So how realistic is it that you're going to actually refer to the item? That's the first question you want to ask yourself. Are you really good now that you've found this mushroom soup recipe? Are you going to make it tonight, next week? What's the plan for it? Or is it just going to stay in a stack of papers that you don't look at for a long time again? So you really want to get real with yourself. And another question in this day and age that I like to ask myself is, Can I find it on the internet? Again, absolutely. You could find a million recipes that are like that. And so these are just ones that you've printed out or grabbed that you really don't love. I'm not talking about grandma's handwritten recipes. Those should definitely be kept somewhere, either in your kitchen, would be my first suggestion, or in a folder in a file cabinet. But go through these things, these travel, people say pull things out from Costco travel or Costco connection about traveling, and maybe they want to go on a cruise. And it's like, okay, well, at that time that you might want to go on a cruise, would you go to this piece of paper, or would you just go online to Costco and book your vacation? And so these are the kinds of questions you want to ask yourself. And I know sometimes, and I do the same thing, you'll see something and you'll save it for yourself, like as a reminder, like, oh my God, yeah, I've always wanted to go to Costa Rica. So you save it. And as a reminder, but really the truth is, that you've always wanted to do this thing. It's really about doing it rather than saving a piece of paper to remind you that you want to do it. So ask yourself, is it something that I'm really going to use now that I've found it? And can I find it on the internet? It's just the internet has made it so easy to find travel discounts, travel arrangements, things, recipes, coupons. A lot of the coupons that get mailed to you, like Bed Bath and Beyond, can also be sent to your email, just as easy as it can be sent to your house. Or you could maybe find a coupon code online. Just ask yourself, now that I found, gathered these 17 Bed Bath and Beyond coupons, am I going to go to Bed Bath and Beyond, and when? And make a plan for it. Otherwise, you're just going to shuffle them back into the pile and deal with them later. So I definitely suggest asking yourself if you're going to use whatever this reference piece of paper is, and then can you find it on the internet? This is definitely stuff printed out, funny jokes, email jokes from work, things like that. I definitely say keep them in your email. If you've printed them out from your email and you really haven't done anything with it, you already have a backup in your email. So if you really wanted to go do it again, you could always reference it in your email or on the internet again. What about things like sentimental items? Cards are one. Cards are one that I even kind of struggle with. Like, I think I've had every single card that my son has ever given me. I can't see myself being able to intentionally throw one out. And that's me. That's, someone that's not very sentimental. So there's something about cards, the handwriting, the energy that went into writing the card, the memory of the time the person gave you the card or you got that card in the mail, and you really just seem to cherish. I mean, I'm getting nostalgic cards. So, but what if it's overkill? So I have things like, I don't know why they do this, but there are like friends and associates that send out photos of them and their family. It's like happy holidays. And I'm like, do you keep those kinds of cards, like of people that you don't really, I mean, they're nice. You like this person. They're super nice. Like you worked with them 5 years ago or whatever, and they've got a great family, cute family, right? Cute dog. But do you really need to save their Christmas card? No. You don't need to be rude and say, stop sending me cards, but I say go ahead and get rid of them. If it doesn't mean anything to you and you're just saving it for some awkward reason, really ask yourself, can I find this family on Facebook? I mean, do I still like this family? Can I contact them in person and spend more time with them in person? So going through your cards is definitely something that is not a high priority. It's always something I say for people to do on their own. I don't go through people's cards for them. And because they're usually pretty personal, and I don't like going through that level of personal in people's belongings, if you know what I mean. So there's a level of, there's just, you really want to respect a card. I get it. And I think that's why people hang on to them. So thin your cards out. What I like to do is I thin them out from the people that are, great. Thanks for sending me this. Love the fam. Get rid of it. that's one way to process cards. And then cards that I find really special, like I said, for my son, I don't have them chronologically in order or anything in some labeled, amazing thing. I just keep them all. Actually, they're all in a desk drawer that I have right here. It's just cards. And there's maybe, I'd say maybe about 50 cards. But most of them, like I said, are from my son. They mean something from me. If it's something that was handwritten from a family member that's no longer around, I've definitely kept that. But I've even had fun getting rid of cards from people I'm no longer with, like ex-boyfriends. That's a really fun one. Ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, ex-wives, ex-whatevers. That's a great one to just burn or shred or just, discard of with a little snicker. That kind of brings me joy, is going through those kind of cards, because you're like, what was I thinking? So you just go through your cards if you have time. Otherwise, if you've got a million things going on and your house really needs attention, I do not suggest sorting your cards out and thinning them out. This is just if you have time, or if you want to dedicate maybe 30 minutes to it, or you just have a small amount of cards and you're like, well, hey, I'll get it down to a shoebox, then go ahead. I definitely say go through your cards. But if your house has cards everywhere in every room, I say just collect them together. If it's a personal card and you're going through paperwork, make just a little banker's box or something for personal cards. And then when you have time, go ahead and thin them out. This is not a high priority item. And I say this because I see people spending a bunch of time on going through cards or going through photographs, and it doesn't really make that huge visual dent that you're going to want if you're really struggling with clutter. But it is nice to sort them out. I'm saying honor and respect your feelings. If you want to save all your cards, go for it. Just keep them all together. Memorabilia, same kind of thing. Tickets. Memorabilia to me would be kind of like you were in the Girl Scouts and you got all your awards. People really love stuff like that. Or, you were a VP at some tech company and you got a million different certificates and acknowledgments. I see all sorts of like memorabilia type stuff. People that have been just really successful, and so they keep a lot of their employment kind of history around, even though it's not relevant. So things that are important to you, memorabilia wise, that are nostalgic kind of events that you've attended, keep those together. I definitely suggest if you have things like movie tickets, not such a big deal. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big fan on keeping concert tickets or tickets to events. I don't keep any. I go to a lot of conferences and events. I don't keep any of the tickets, the lanyards, that they give you. But I see a lot of this kind of stuff. So you really want to think, do I want to does this deserve the space in my house? How about we ask the memorabilia items that? Does this deserve the space in my house? Do I have to have, 75 lanyards with my name on it, proving that I was, at some conference for 15 years in a row? So I don't know. That's kind of a slippery slope when you're keeping things like that. But if you feel like you want to keep them, I definitely say keep them all together. Tickets, I'll go more into tickets, are, if you go to a lot of baseball games or if you're a season member, I'm not quite sure why you would keep the tickets. Maybe if it was a really big game, or if it was an important game, or if it was your first date or something like that. But movie tickets, I see a lot of those. I don't know how important those are. Again, unless you have some sort of specific event really tied in them that means something to you. Let's move on to two kind of paper items that overwhelm even me as an organizer in your home, are receipts. People love to keep receipts. And I'm not just talking to you. Everyone loves to keep receipts. I don't. I have to keep a lot of receipts for work. I'm not talking about work receipts. If you're self-employed or if they're tax deductions, definitely keep those kinds of receipts. But receipts to like Target for a couple of candy bars and a water, really, I don't think we need that. We don't need our Whole Foods receipts. We don't need our Trader Joe's receipts. We don't need to save every single receipt that we've ever gotten in our life. And I say that with so much love because I see it so much. And when you're going through paperwork, that's what really bogs you down because, again, receipts, first of all, they fade. Anyone that has old receipts knows this. I mean, some of them are just completely blank. But you got to handle them. They're kind of dirty. And then if you've got years accumulated of them, and you got to get your glasses on because, of course, it's that small print. And you got to go through like, oh, when was this? 2015. Oh, what? Oh, I bought a sandwich at Starbucks, big deal. So I say, get rid of receipts that you don't need. If you don't need them for taxes, if you don't need them for some sort of insurance claim or whatever, get rid of them because they will really bog you down when you start to go through your paperwork. So even going forward, starting today, start tomorrow, if you get a receipt at Starbucks and you don't need it as a tax exemption or a write-off or anything, just get rid of it at Starbucks. I know that makes people uncomfortable. I'm not sure why. I usually ask for no receipt because there's a lot of companies that have paperless options, or you can have the receipt emailed to you, a lot of the places that are using Square and those kind of things. So I definitely suggest going forward, really put the kibosh on saving receipts, and unless you need them, of course, and immediately. That way, when you're going through boxes and boxes of paperwork, you don't have to go through this pretty excruciating minutia of what you had for breakfast and what you got at the gas station, 5, 6, 7 years ago. So there's my little rant on receipts. Take it or leave it. I will still love and support you. Notes. I will finish this one up with notes. I'm slightly guilty of this. I keep my notes on a specific pad, and it's more like the irony is it's not here on my desk, right where it should always be. I know where it is though, but I always keep this notebook here on my desk, except for today, of course, and it's what goals do I have? It's just one of those, like a goal setting to-do list notebook. And so I really like to maximize the page there. So I cross things out and then I get really tiny writing in there. I don't know. So it's just easier for me to use the same notebook. But I know when I'm at work, I come across like a plethora of Post-it notes. And sometimes it's just a phone number without even a name on it. And sometimes it's like an old shopping list or something that you've already handled or is no longer relevant. So notes definitely is its own category, because if you write to-do lists and then you lose them, when you're going through your paperwork, it's most likely you'll find them. And so what I suggest for people that end up with a large amount of notes when they're sorting their paperwork is go ahead and actually process them. I mean, don't just move them from pile to pile. Go ahead and process the notes. Is this something that is relevant? Yay, nay. Get rid of it. If it is relevant, keep one tablet, one notebook, one computer, page or whatever, one designated area for your notes going forward, and consolidate all of your little pieces of paper and all of your notes onto this one dedicated space. That way you've addressed these notes, which you took the energy to write. You've checked off to make sure that you're not missing out on anything, because I mean, who hasn't found a note and you're like, oh my God, I totally forgot to do whatever. So definitely get all your notes together. It's the same kind of process with all these kinds of things. I would sort notes together. I would sort receipts together. I would sort memorabilia together, coupons together, recipes together, stuff that you've printed out, interest, things like that. You want to sort out in categories, loose categories. They don't have to be super specific. And again, if your house has the Hoardnado look going on in it, do not worry about this kind of paperwork. Keep it to the side and then go back to this podcast and do some more detailed sorting once you've made space in your home and you feel those kind of improvements. That's when I suggest doing things like this. So I don't suggest sorting recipes or sorting any sort of memorabilia. Receipts and notes going forward, you can manage those with receipts. As I suggested, you could get them paperless, or if you really don't need to keep them, don't. Don't let them in the house. Treat them, like I suggest junk mail. I don't let junk mail even get into my house. It goes immediately into the recycling bin. There's no one piece that slips through. And I do the same with receipts. I don't want a bunch of receipts. They're all weird size. They're such a weird texture. They're a pain in the neck. They're hard to shred. I just don't really want anything to do with them. So I'm definitely suggesting going forward, scrutinize what you bring in your home, including your receipts, because they do add up. If you have any questions about this podcast, you can always email me at hoardganize@gmail.com. Please feel free to join our Facebook group. We have a challenge going on. You do have to be on the group to participate, where April 1st, the person with the funniest item in their home will get to choose the entire podcast challenge for April. So this is kind of an inside challenge for a larger challenge. But it's going to be fun, and people are already starting to post really interesting things. So I'm really excited about that. And I just spent the entire day interviewing people for our podcast. So I'm happy to say that we have 3 guests coming on in the near future in the month of April. Definitely, if you're on YouTube, please make sure you're subscribed. Click the thumbs up button and comment. And if you're listening to this on an audio device, which I'm sure a lot of you are, please go ahead and leave a review for the podcast. It's really important. It helps with rankings, et cetera, but only a 5-star review, right, guys? Until next time, collectors, and remember, happiness is a place between too little and too much.
Thank you for listening to the Hoardganize Podcast. Please make sure you're subscribed and join our Hoardganize Podcast Facebook page and get additional tips and challenges.